Most leaders don't lose their best people because of pay, workload, or strategy. They lose them long before that, when people stop feeling seen, supported, or understood. And in today's episode, we're talking about why unmet needs quietly erode trust and how the leaders people love to follow pay attention to what their people actually need, not just what the job demands. And this is huge. This is huge because if we look at this topic that we're, diving into today, it's like there are a lot of misconceptions about why people leave organizations. And it's been said that people really don't leave organizations, they leave managers, they leave leaders in those organizations because the organization itself is simply an entity that a group of people work in to provide a service or products or whatever. So, this always comes down to the issue that all these issues are people problems, right? Like if we don't deal with the people matters in our businesses, then we're going to struggle to have a healthy team and a healthy culture. And so today I just want to kind of dive into this because, my book, The Magnetic Leader, I talk about this idea of magnetic leaders meet needs in chapter one. And I talk about how important it is to really know your people in order to be able to meet their needs. And so I want to dive into that a little bit today, kind of from maybe a different angle than I've addressed in the past, but still very connected to the overall idea. And the first thing is that you have to see people. People want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be contributors. They want to be valued. And as leaders, it's easy for us to fall into the trap of busy work and not do that, to not see them, to not pay attention enough, to not include them enough, to not involve them in decision making, even if their part isn't necessarily the answer. Many people just want to be part of the process. And so what I want to encourage you to think about is, how do you see your people? How do you make sure you're seeing your people, that you're not becoming blind to those around you? I think that's really a critical question you need to think about because your schedule and my schedule are completely different. The next leader's schedule is completely different. So we have to customize how we stay on top of these things so that we don't let our people fall through the cracks. People genuinely want to feel cared for, and we'll dive into that in a future episode as well. But I address that in my book as well, and Essential Action number 9, chapter 9, where I talk about that magnetic leaders love people. And I talk about how caring for people is critical. And if you truly genuinely care for people, then you're going to make sure you're meeting their needs along the way. You're going to make sure that you understand their needs. And this is the challenge, right? Is that one person over here doesn't need the same things that a second person over here does, or the third, or the 10th, or the 20th. It's just a reality that as human beings, we all have different needs, and we have to customize our leadership in order to make that happen. So that's the first thing I really want to dive into is making sure that you're being intentional and keeping an eye out and truly seeing your people for who they are, what they bring to the table, what they need from you, what they need from the organization. And it leads to the second point I want to bring up is about resourcing them because that's a signal to people that you're paying attention, that you care, that you want them to succeed. It's not enough to simply say, "Hey, you're hired, you got the job, go do the work." It's how can I help you be most successful? How can I help you do your work in the most productive way? How can I help you be the kind of employee or team member that's going to thrive, that's going to enjoy your experience here, that's going to bring added value to the team? So you as a leader have a responsibility about resourcing people, and when you do that, it's like advocacy for them as an individual, right? You're advocating for their success. You're you're showing them as individuals and then even collectively as a team that you care enough about making sure they have all they need to be successful. I've told this story before, but I'll never forget this story that I heard at a conference probably 20 years ago now or more. Um, but I was at a conference and the speaker said that he had a new employee and he always would do a 90-day sit down, review with them to see how things are going and talk about their progress and everything. And one of the questions he asked was, what do you need that might be helpful for you to be, more effective in your job. And the woman who was talking to him kind of sheepishly told him, well, I need a new paper cutter. Now, she felt kind of foolish asking for something that seemed so small, but for her job, it was an important tool that she could use to be more successful and to have a better tool to use. So he talked to his assistant and made sure that this woman got a brand new paper cutter. And his point was that if he wouldn't have sat down and talked to her, he wouldn't have known that need or that issue that she was dealing with. Because here's the thing, for 90 days in her job, how much frustration was she dealing with? Because the old paper cutter wasn't maybe as sharp or wasn't as good. It was maybe breaking down or whatever it may be. So for her, it was a big deal on a daily basis. For him, it was a matter of asking his assistant to make sure that she got a new paper cutter that would help her with her job. And he said, the idea is you should do for one person what you may not be able to do for everyone. Everybody in this organization didn't need a new paper cutter. They needed different things. But that woman in that conversation, at that point in time, the best thing that he could do to meet her needs was to provide that paper cutter that would allow her to be more effective and efficient in her job. That may seem like a small thing to us at different times as leaders, but honestly, here's the thing. Some of the smallest things actually communicate the biggest messages. Taking care of the small issues shows that you care about people enough to actually do something. And that really leads us through this third part of what I want to talk about here is that credibility in your leadership, it's built through follow through. If you promise to do something by a certain amount of time, then do it. If somebody asks for your help and you agree to help them, then do it. If you say you're going to accomplish these tasks by a certain time or date in a project or whatever it is that you're involved in, then do it. Because I believe consistency is an X factor, if not the X factor in leadership. Because if you're inconsistent, people just don't know what to expect from you. People don't know how to handle you. They don't know how to deal with you. They're not sure how you're going to show up on a daily basis. They're not going to be confident in, are you going to show up when we need you most? And I think that goes back to this idea of just taking care of the small things, taking care of the little things. I talk a lot about leading life big, like being intentionally great. That's what big stands for in my vernacular. But here's the thing, greatness doesn't always mean big, like size wise, like gigantic. It often means doing the little things well with excellence. I was reading a new book called Drift to Drive by Chris Robinson last week, and one of the things he talked about was basically the perfection trap. And it made me really think about another one of the essential actions in the magnetic leader that we'll cover in the coming weeks about pursuing excellence. And I talk a lot in there about how excellence and perfectionism are not the same thing. Perfectionism is something that'll hold you back until everything, all the conditions, everything is truly perfect. Whereas excellence is doing the best you can with what you have and all that you know right now. I can't be perfect in anything, honestly. I'm going to make mistakes in some way, shape, or form. I can be maybe close to perfect if the thing is something familiar to me, but rarely, if ever, can I be perfect in anything. But I can be excellent every day. I can do the best I can with what resources I have, with the knowledge I have, with the experiences I have right now. And you know what? When I do that next thing and I get more experience, more knowledge, more understanding, then excellence will look different the next time because I'll be better equipped. But I can't worry about being excellent in that way a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I need to be excellent today in this moment. And as a leader, when you follow through, when you do the small things well, when you focus on making sure your people are in good shape, when you care for your people, when you meet their needs, um, that's how you show them that they're valuable. That's how you show them that you're all in for them. See, that's the thing too, is as leaders need to show that they're truly for their people. Not just that, you're going to need them for success or use them for your success, but that you truly are for them, that you are for their success within the organizational or the team success. And if you do that, it just makes such a huge difference because, I remember years ago hearing, just basketball coaches talking about, our success leads to individual success. Team success leads to individual success. And that's so true because even if you have an all-star player on a team putting up incredible stats, if that team is struggling, it diminishes the impact and the value of that player. Now, when you put that player with those skills and abilities on a team that really thrives together, it just basically elevates him or her. It elevates the team, the organization. It makes everything better. And so, what are you doing to help your people truly be successful? Are you meeting their needs? Are you engaging with them regularly so that you can understand who they are and what they need at this moment? And here's the other thing, you have to be careful. It's one thing when you have those new employees and new team members, like the one I was mentioning about the paper cutter, when you're intentionally setting up a 90-day review to talk about their performance and how the job is going and everything and their onboarding. It's another thing when that person's been with you 9 years or 20 years. And I know that longevity in organizations seems to be more rare, in our era today for sure. However, when people are with you for a while, it's easy to fall into, I'll say apathy about checking in with them, making sure they're in good shape, especially the people. Here's the crazy thing, right? Especially the people who are doing their job well. Because as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So when people are struggling, when people are failing at tasks, they get the attention. But what about your high performers? What about the people who are bought in? What about the people who are successful? Are you giving them that ongoing, continual, intentional time so that they're not just kind of feeling left out and pushed to the side because actually it's a punishment for success is really what it feels like. And on one level, yeah, nobody wants to be micromanaged, but they do want to be managed. They do want to be cared for. They do want to be connected to. And that's really what this is all about is connections. If you'll focus on connecting with your people consistently, strategically, intentionally, and then you find out how are they doing personally, how are they doing professionally, what new skills, tools, development do they need so that they will be able to thrive at that next level. When you start having those kind of conversations and that kind of engagement and relationship with your people, it just changes the game. It makes them feel valued, it makes them feel worthy, and it makes them want to be a part of that culture that you're building because they know when they show up to work every day, when they show up to the job, when they show up and face the challenges, when they're tackling the next project, they know that you're in their corner. They know that you're for them. And so once again, you're not just, you know, doing this to go through the motions. You're doing this to truly be intentional to build depth in a relationship with your people. Now, for some listening to this, that might feel like a lot of work, and it will be maybe at first. But I do believe it gets easier over time, especially when you get into a rhythm of it. I remember years ago when I was first leading a dysfunctional team that I walked into, and my job was to get them on the same page. And the first thing I did was start scheduling individual and team meetings more consistently. And while it seemed like a very simple step, a very obvious step to me as I stepped into that organization, it was something that wasn't being done. And what I saw over the first, even I'll say 3 to 6 months of that time was really transformation of relationships between the people involved, as well as my credibility, my influence, my leadership capacity with those people, because I was making sure that I was meeting with them individually on a monthly basis and caring for them and addressing their needs, finding out their challenges, helping them win, helping them be successful. And then I bring them together on a monthly basis as a team and we talk about goals and plans and we would open up the channels of communication. And it just changed the game in a situation that prior to that was combative, dysfunctional, It was turf wars, inside the organization, and it didn't need to be that way. It didn't need to be that way. But what I learned by actually doing this was how important just this ongoing rhythm was to that team, and not just to that team, but any team. So, what are you doing with your team? Are you meeting with your people individually? Are you meeting with your team regularly? Are you talking to people more than just about tasks and projects, but also about them as a person? Are you making your leadership human, not just transactional about the job? That's where transformation happens. When you care enough about your people, when you intentionally meet with them, and when you put together a plan and a strategy of how am I going to be an intentional leader with the people that I have under me in my care, how am I going to lead them? Because when you lead them well, then they're going to stay with you. And even if they leave, here's the thing, some people still leave, right? But even if they leave in a different way. Most people leave and they kind of want to throw the match over their shoulder and burn the place down when they leave because they're so frustrated and angry at the situation. But when you do this the right way, when you do this, what we're talking about today, they leave gracefully. They leave with thanking you for being the kind of leader they needed at that time. And maybe the new opportunity is better for them, right? Maybe they need to move for their family. Maybe they need to just do something different for their own well-being. And we have to just kind of understand that, embrace that, welcome that. But reality is that when they leave, they're leaving in a different way. So you're going to keep people who are engaged, who are happier, who are inspired and motivated, and you're going to lose some people maybe that leave, but they're going to leave in a way that the relationship's intact, the respect is intact, the word of mouth on the street, about your team, about you as a leader, about your organization is positive. So yes, sometimes investing in people, the reality is they still leave because of life, because it's just the way it happens. We've all done that. We've all moved on to different opportunities. But the reality is that how that happens and what you do while they're with you is critical. So if you want to make sure you're not losing your people in the process of driving performance, I really encourage you to think about this today to realize that, it's not just enough to give a raise, it's not just enough to give some more paid time off, it's not just enough to give people new opportunities. Those are important, but what people need is respect. What people need is to feel seen, to feel heard, to be a part of something that matters. If you need help and you want me to come in maybe and help develop your team so that your managers understand these principles like this, then just give me a contact. Go to McClureCoaching.com. You can apply for a free strategy session. We can schedule a time to chat about what your particular situation is. We could talk about what coaching looks like for you personally or for your team training needs. But I just encourage you, whatever it may be, don't sit on this and just hope for the best and hope that things get different. Take action, be strategic, be intentional, make sure that you're meeting the needs of your people so that you don't lose them before you ever lose their performance, before you ever lose their output. Make sure you're providing the right input, the right value to them. And when you do that, it really does change the game. So take care, God bless, and we will see you next time.